quite a video.
All right, Bob, it's raining at TCF Bank Stadium.
Finally raining.
Finally raining. Not snowing, so I guess we'll take it. 31-26, Minnesota win. Initial thoughts of how does Penn State move forward after that performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a reality check for Penn State. They learned against a good team, if you don't play your best game and you make a couple of mistakes. I think going into this game, I think you and I thought, I don't think there was a lot of room for error for Penn State, but if they played well, they were going to win the game. That just wasn't the case. They played a good half, maybe a good 35 minutes, but the first half, it's tough to come back against a team like this in their style when you make so many mistakes in the first half. It's just tough to right the ship. It's a tough loss. They showed a lot of grit coming back, but I just think that everything was in front of them. And James Franklin said afterwards, it kind of still is, but I think the sting of this defeat, it's going to hurt them long term, especially when you consider, Greg, as we look ahead. They still have to deal. They have to deal with Indiana. But if the offense or if the defense is going to struggle like they did against Minnesota, what is going to happen in a couple of weeks when Ohio State and their athletes get on the field against these guys? I just think it's kind of a reality check and a wake up call that you just at this stage of the season you just can't make that many mistakes.
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. You can't play zone and not have the safety come over and cover it. You can't see the RPO concepts in practice for since this team started practicing in the spring, and then not diagnose the fixes to stop those when another team. I mean, they basically, I think you said it, that Tanner Morgan had a lot of Trace McSorley-like qualities today, and he played a perfect game. And there were a few times Trace played a perfect game. And when a guy's doing that, you got to figure out something. I know he's getting the ball out fast, but Penn State's defensive backs were not sticky enough to run with these big, talented receivers. And because of that, Minnesota's able to put up 31 points, enough to get the job done. Yeah,
they weren't very efficient in the red zone, which is something they were all year on offense. They settled for field goals. They took a delay of game in the first half that cost them. They had that. I mean, obviously, and I'm not laughing, the pass interference call on Daniel George turned the game. One last time. They still had an opportunity, but they were really up against it after that call. They don't throw that flag. They're almost looking at a sure touchdown. Not a guarantee, but they're in great shape to take the lead with a minute and 20 to go. That was unfortunate. Minnesota, I thought, had a couple calls go against them. Greg, big picture, I think if these two teams played 10 times on a neutral field, I think Penn State wins about 6 of them. But they just weren't good enough today against this team that played its A game to undo all the mistakes they made in the first half. Let's just talk a little bit about a couple things. Micah Parsons, a disciplinary action, missed the first series, which ended up as a touchdown. We didn't really get to hear from James as to what the issue was.
Probably wouldn't have anyway. If we did.
But I mean, in a game where they lose by 5 points and they score a touchdown on the first drive, and they're arguably their best defender's not on the field, that cost them. Noah Cain warmed up, but it was pretty clear as some of the drills he went through, he wasn't really participating. He just wasn't 100%. Journey Brown had 100 yards, and that's great, but Noah Cain brings a different dimension to the offense. They didn't have him. They got 3 games left. They're 8-1. An 11-win season is possible. I don't know if it's probable with Ohio State still on the schedule, but I mean, I think you got to look at 10-2 at this point with a shot at 11-1. And at the start of the year, that would be a hell of a mark to achieve. And they went down with their boots on today. They did. I mean, it's one of those days where it just wasn't their day. They had about 6 plays that could have went their way. Justin Shorter drops a touchdown in the end zone. KJ Ham was open in the end zone on Sean Clifford's, third interception. On his second interception, it looked like there was contact before Antoine Winfield caught the ball. Everything kind of added up, and it resulted in a very narrow defeat. I think if you're a Penn State fan, I know it's painful and you're going to replay it a lot, but I also think you got to give Minnesota credit.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, this is a team that I doubted coming into the season.
Yes, we know you do, Greg.
We know you them coming into this week, but you can see, and James Franklin talked about this earlier in the week, that much like Penn State with James Franklin, PJ Fleck has his ducks in a row, and these guys buy into that. And that's a dangerous thing to have for any team, especially one that has the talent this one does. And I thought they were better defensively than today than I thought they would be. So Minnesota just played a better game. Sometimes it happens. Penn State now has to make sure it doesn't replay this game twice when it plays Indiana. Sean Clifford, I thought, an interesting quote. He was asked, what the next thing he was going to do. Was it right to the film? And he said, I don't know, I've never been a part of a losing experience. And that's good for him. But does his team have enough guys that are able to steady the ship at this point? They have a lot of young stars who have not experienced any unsuccessful games so far this year before tonight. So how quickly can they get that going in the right direction? That'll be all the key the week leading up to Indiana.
Yeah. One thing I just want to mention in conclusion, because it's a look ahead, and I think this is nothing that people probably aren't always thinking to themselves. There's 3 games left. There's a bowl game. At some point, Greg, would you agree, the third receiver in this offense in the spread, whoever it is, whether it's Daniel George, who had the penalty, whether it's Justin Shorter, who dropped the touchdown pass, whether it's Dan Chisena, who had a pass for the touchdown, I think hit off his face. They have not had a number 3 receiver step up and take some of the pressure off Hamler and Freiermuth. I think that is something to watch for in the next 2 or 3 or 4 games. And I think if that ever happens, you're going to see a very, very dangerous offense. But right now, to me, that's one of the bigger storylines of this season is they keep saying they like a lot of their guys. Yeah. But the third receiver in the spread has yet to surface, and it's costing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you like him as guys, but you don't like the production those guys are producing is what it comes down to. Yeah, I mean, if you want to look all the way ahead to Columbus, I think they get past Indiana. It's a more talented than you would think Indiana team. They should get past them. But if you want to look ahead to Columbus, you're not going to go out there and win with just KJ Hamler and Pat Freiermuth and a little bit of Journey Brown splash.
Correct.
You're going to need somebody else to step up and be that third guy, even be that fourth guy. They don't have that right now. They have too many guys that are close but no cigar, dropping passes, committing penalties, so on and so forth. So, yeah, it was a storyline tonight, and it will be moving forward.